Tell the people you love that you love them today. Tell the people you care about that they matter today. I did, and I'm glad. Hey, you, how's it going? How are you? Welcome to this, your Tuesday edition of the show. Yeah, your Tuesday. Like every day that goes by, that's another step that you have taken forward. You're doing awesome. Hang in there. You got this. You are a badass. And if you need something, if there's anything I can do for you to make your Tuesday better, hit me up. I'm here with you. I'm here for you. At ADSXE. It's where you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at ADSXE. Put them in your phone now in case you need them later. So, I lost my dad, which we've talked about on the show a little bit. I took a 3-week break from the podcast to do all the grieving things. And I am nowhere near done with the grieving things, but I kind of sort of felt it was time to start talking to you again. Selfishly, these conversations with you, they're what get me through. And it was interesting. The 6-week trip that I took to Kosovo and Macedonia, well, I did everything I could to save my father's life, and then the trip back to Los Angeles where ultimately me and my sister lost him. 6-week trip left me with an awful lot to unpack in a lot of different ways. And years ago, I talked to a therapist for a few years, I think. And man, I was grateful. I was unbelievably grateful because I was like, I've got some stuff going on. I've got all these really unpleasant, vivid images popping into my head of the most inopportune moments of some of the most difficult, that are of some of the most difficult memories of the time that I spent over there. I've got a lot of different arrows pointing off in a lot of different emotional directions. And I got some stuff that I'm going to need a little professional help making sense of. I really hope the guy I used to talk to, my old doctor, is still in business and still taking patients and has some time to talk to me. And fortunately, he did. So, the same way you and I have been talking things out, well, not the same way. Let me be totally clear on this. He is a professional. I am in no way, shape, or form qualified to give advice on anything. But, talking things out makes a big difference. One of the things he told me when I was like, I'm really sort of stressed out about the fact that at some point I'm going to have to start a new job. My old job, being on your radio, especially if you listen to me in Houston on 94.5 The Buzz, my job of 17 years came to an end while I was in Kosovo looking after my father. And I know at some stage in the game, I will need to go to work sooner rather than later, hopefully, because, bills and whatnot. But I knew I'd have to get back to work, and I was talking to my shrink, and I was like, hey, am I going to be okay? Like, am I going to be able to hold it together? Because I'm sort of losing it at some pretty inopportune moments. There'll be times where I'm going through my day and all of a sudden this wave of grief will wash over to me and I am reduced to a sobbing mess. And my job involves being on the air, talking to people live. My job will be a new one, and I'll be around a whole bunch of people that haven't had a chance to get to know and love me for the last 17 years. And if I all of a sudden am overcome with grief and sobbing in the middle of the hallway, I'm sure the people that I'm going to be working with when I wind up working with them will be, folks that would understand that, because everyone understands that, but it's not, it's not how you want to start. So basically I was like, hey, doc, am I going to be okay to work? This grief stuff can sneak up behind you and pop you pretty good without you being aware of what exactly it is that's going to set you off. Am I going to be able to hold it together in a new job? And he was like, actually, it's kind of a shame you don't have a job right now because, well, having a job, having something that forces you to put one foot in front of the other and get the job done helps you mentally partition what you're going through a little bit better. So because you don't have that, well, you're more likely to get hit with this wave of grief during times that seem inopportune. If you were working, chances are it'd be less likely to happen then. I was like, oh, so I should start doing the podcast. And he's like, yeah, you should. If that's something that you think you can do, then as soon as you're ready, you should do it. So I wanted to get back to it. I wanted to get back to doing this sooner rather than later. And you and I have talked about this a little bit in the past on the podcast, but anything that helps you in a time of crisis or trouble, put one foot in front of the next and just focus on doing the next right thing is a good thing. So that's what I'm doing here with you. And I thank you for joining me for it. And if you are one of the folks that's decided to support me on Patreon, thank you so much. So many people had asked how they could support. So many people had suggested putting up a Patreon page. And like I said, I was just like, okay, I guess this is a thing that we do. I'm new to the podcasting world. I'm trying to figure it out as I go. Sure, I'll do that. And in a way I can't quite fully explain, those first couple of subscribers, those first couple of, I guess, patrons on the Patreon page, it was more than just the fact that, hey, here's some dollars to keep doing the podcast every single month because I enjoy listening to it. There was a level of connection and feeling cared for there that really surprised me, really took me aback. It's so much more than just pledging whatever dollars you pledge every single month. It's a really good feeling. It's more meaningful than I imagined it would be in a way I can't fully explain yet, but I am so filled with gratitude that you did that. If that's not something you want to do, I'm filled with gratitude that you're listening to this. I feel incredibly fortunate, incredibly grateful, incredibly, cared for in that you're joining me for all of this. So hopefully I can do the same for you. Hopefully I can make you feel cared for and listened to as we talk things out in our lives. Hopefully as we share this with a community of people that are listening, as we help each other out, as we pass on our own individual life lessons, that feeling that you've given me, that I am so grateful for, I'll be able to give some of that back to you as well. Thank you so much. And if you did want to support, awesome, you're the greatest. Patreon.com/ADSXE. And if not, you are still the greatest. Thank you so much. And I guess that's something I wanted to tell you, because I've learned over the last, I don't know how many years, that telling someone you love them, telling someone you care, telling someone they matter, it's never, ever, ever going to be a bad idea. And as I look back through the morass of emotions that the last 15 years of my dad's life have brought me, as I look at the fact that I had to have him medically evacuated twice, as I look at the fact that he lived with me for a year while he was getting heart treatment, as I look at the fact that there were a couple round the world trips to help look after him in tough medical situations, one of the things that I'm eternally grateful for is that his medical problems, which started, I guess, probably a little over 15 years ago, gave me a sense that time is short and you don't know when it's going to run out. You really don't. None of us do. And when I first found out that my father had congestive heart failure, like I said, I had to have him medically evacuated. He came to live with me in Houston while he got treatment in Houston, where they kind of wrote the book on things like heart transplants, where they have one of the most advanced heart departments in the world at Methodist, at the DeBakey Heart Center, I think it's called, where he was fortunate enough to get seen and treated. But when that happened, and when he survived it, when he made what the doctors thought was a bit of a miraculous recovery, it gave me an early realization that time is limited. My father wasn't especially old when that happened to him. He's been having problems with his health from a relatively young age. And because of that, I made sure that whenever I spoke to him, whenever I emailed him, whenever I messaged with him on Facebook or texted with him, however we were communicating, whether we saw each other in person or not, I made sure that I told him I loved him. And it's funny, a buddy of mine called me after my father passed away, and he said, it makes me think of my own folks, that maybe I don't tell them that I love them enough. I was like, dude, I don't know much, but I do know that you will never regret telling them that you love them. For a lot of people, it's tough. As much as you might love someone, those words might be difficult for you to get out. They carry a lot of emotional weight, especially between parents and children. And there's some families that throw that around like you wouldn't believe, that tell each other that they love each other constantly. And for some reason, there's other folks that have a harder time getting those words out. But I will tell you this, if you get them out, you will never regret it. My friend, like I said, I worry that I don't tell them that I love them enough. And my advice to him and my advice to you was tell them every single time. It's one of the things I'm happy about, one of the things I'm grateful for with my dad's situation. I would have loved it if he was happy and healthy. I would have loved it if I had a normal relationship with my father where I got to see him on weekends, that so much of our interaction wasn't centered around health crises and things of that nature. But I am so grateful that it gave me an early look at the fact that time might be running out. What's the old expression? You want to give them flowers while they're here. I didn't really give my dad flowers, but, well, I'll give you a perfect example. My father spent, like I've told you before, the last 15 or so years of his life in Kosovo. His legal work took him there. He felt a real sense of purpose there, and he came to think of it as home. Like I said, doesn't give you a relationship with your dad that lets you have barbecues on the weekend. Plus, there's a 9-hour time difference. Just getting on the horn was difficult. When he first moved out there, the way we would talk, because telecom out there in a newer country, in former war-torn Yugoslavia, was sketchy. So he would have Skype, and he would charge up his Skype account. And then he would call me on my cell phone, and then I got Skype, and we would call each other back and forth on that. But it got to the point where it wasn't an easy form of communication. We were 9 hours apart, and we had to be in front of our respective computers at the time. And well, that was early digital tech. Cut to a few years later, well, everybody's using all sorts of messengers. Everybody's using Facebook Messenger. Everybody's using WhatsApp. Everybody's using all these free digital services to make long-distance calling hassles a thing of the past. So I'm grateful for the fact that, can't believe I'm saying this, Mark Zuckerberg kind of gave me more of a relationship with my dad. Once he discovered Facebook, he was all about it. He was messaging. He was asking for pictures. He was looking for updates. And he was, well, Mark Zuckerberg, as much as I have questions about the effects he's had on the rest of the world, did give me more of a relationship with my dad once he got on Facebook. And especially since Facebook Messenger became a thing, especially since Facebook Messenger allowed you to make phone calls and have video chats. But my dad kind of had like the early adopter, the elderly early adopter thing with tech. He was on it. He was all over it, but he didn't fully understand exactly how it worked. And this is a perfect example of it. Often he would call me at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. He would call me when I was asleep or working. And he would do it because, well, sometimes when you see someone pop up on Facebook Messenger, it'll say that they're active. You don't actually have to be active for that thing to pop up. I don't know exactly what sets it off, but there were so many times when at 3 a.m, which was a perfectly socially acceptable hour for my dad to be awake in Kosovo, where he was 9 hours ahead, he would call me and I'd be like, it's the middle of the night, Dad. What's up? Is everything okay? He was like, oh yeah, Facebook said you were active, so I just assumed you were up. Every single time he did that, I got up. Every single time he did that, we had a conversation. Every single time I did that, we talked until my dad didn't want to talk anymore, had other things to do. And at the end of every conversation, didn't matter if he called me in the middle of the night, didn't matter if he called me in the middle of me working, I would say, I love you, Dad. And I'm forever grateful that I did. As I look back at everything that transpired over the last few months and everything that's gone on in my dad's life over the last 15 years, there's one thing that I will always be thankful for, and that's that I took every opportunity to talk to him, and that I took every opportunity to tell him that I loved him. And I know, without a doubt, that he left this life and moved on to whatever was next, knowing that I loved him. That feels really, really good. And those opportunities where you don't tell someone you love them, you don't get those back. If you love someone, tell them today. If you care about someone, tell them that they matter today. That is it for me. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for being a part of my radio family. As always, this time that you and I spend together, it's the best part of my day every day. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again. In the meantime, have a good one. And I love you. I care about you. Later.